As you know, and as we've seen and been very impressed, what you've done in healthcare is a model for the world. What you've done in environment, there are very few environmental success stories. It's really a model that's much larger than Rwanda. However, in this issue, the whole area of freedoms of expression, that, as I'm sure you're aware, there's been a very lively debate and a lot of concern outside of Rwanda, and it tends to center around the laws of divisionism and the genocide ideology laws, and the criticism is that they're so vague that they can basically be used to stifle any kind of critique or criticism of the government. So I'm wondering if there's anything that you're planning to do to address those two particular sets of laws, to address this concern in international arenas about freedom of expression in Rwanda.
The outside has, and from what you've just said, you see, you start from the point that the government is wrong. The government is doing the wrong thing, cannot be right. When you start from there, because always the government is a culprit, is a finger pointed at, even if what the government is doing actually is different from what it is being accused of. So I would instead ask you, how you from outside, how would you help us to deal with this? Because some of the issues you are debating outside there are not the issues as you debate them here in Rwanda. So how do I deal with that? I'll give you an example. It's very interesting. There have been surveys, international surveys carried out in this country, so many, about transparency, about democratic governance, by different international groups. The Gatum, the International Transparency International, there are different, the World Bank surveys, and so on and so forth. I'll tell you something that is very interesting. They came here, different groups, they went into the population, they were interviewing people, thousands of them, from different parts. Now, they come up with interesting findings. And most of them, if not all of them, they are like 8 different independent surveys on different things. And in fact, in Africa, Rwanda, on all of those surveys, is among the first 5 or the first 10. And even globally, because there are about 180-something countries surveyed, we are always among the first third of the whole group. Now, but in one report, this is something that has always interested me. There is where there is, in the report, on one part, there is written, although undemocratic, Rwanda, when they said, when we asked Rwandans, 84% talks about how they are free in expressing themselves, how they are free during the electoral processes, and so on and so forth. But what is interesting I'm talking about is that the author now says, you see, the details of the findings actually point to this place being democratic and free. But they, and I fail to understand, say, if the finding is this, why would you start by prejudicing the reader by saying, although undemocratic? Now, undemocratic based on what? Because when you are talking about 84% and the way they are expressing themselves, and then you start, this is what you found out. But then the first sentence, although undemocratic, is your own. Where do you get it from? So how do you want me to address that? How do you want, I'm addressing the issues with Rwandans and of Rwanda. And now, you either believe what you see, or You have something else you want to believe on your own. I don't know where you get it from, and I cannot be responsible for that. How do I convince you? So this is where the problem is.